everyone, you're watching VGO 40 and this is VGO Girl, and today we're going to take a look at Warhammer Peak for World of Kings, and this is in normal mode. Now my guild just decided to start doing this, and it's actually a lot easier than I thought it would be. However, there's kind of an up and down side for doing it. The commendations that drop within this dungeon do not count towards your tier gear, so you can't get tier 1 gear from the commendations for this, at least currently. I'm hoping the devs will change this. However, the helm and I believe the legs drop from this dungeon, so they're the most expensive tier 1 gear to get. I think they're about 320 gold or something like that. So getting these from this dungeon is more like 150 gold, somewhere around there. So we're trying to add this at least into our rotation once a week to help people get those more expensive drops for less. Okay, first a quick note on the setup. We have a marker in the center where everybody goes to fight. Tanks, healers, DPS, everybody stands there. And then if you can see, there's a little blue triangle on one of our DPS. This is a DPS that can kind of jump or launch himself at different targets. And he is actually our top DPS currently, so we wanted him to be able to kind of spring at the sword section. So to begin with, we're just going to do a straight DPS. There's these blue, purple, whatever they are, circles that come up, just spread out. They're little bombs. They're fine if you just kind of spread out and avoid piling on top of each other. Go back to the center and then just continue to DPS the boss. Now, next you're going to gather together to share damage. That's really the main phases that are small, and I apologize, my recording was kind of freezing a bit between voice chat and recording and all this stuff going on. For some reason my iPad wasn't happy. Okay, if you're doing your DPS fast enough, you skip this circle phase, which I'm going to go over at the very end of the video, and you do these swords. Now the swords are where you have that top person with the triangle DPS. What you're going to do is kind of play follow the leader. You're going to look for where that blue triangle is, and you're going to follow to each sword. Now, the person who is on the triangle is going to test the sword to see if he can damage it. If he can, everybody goes over and kills the sword. If he can't, if he hits the sword and it only does 1 damage, then he needs to move on to the next sword and then come back to that one later. So he kind of tests to see which is the next sword to go to. And once those swords are all down, you go back to the boss. During the sword phase, it's also important for healers to make sure to keep up with the healing between each section. I think each sword does an AoE damage, so you have to make sure to heal between each sword, which is good, which is why you kind of want to have everybody all on one sword instead of spread out. Okay, the other two mechanics. Quickly switching to a previous raid when we were trying things out, you'll see these light blue circles around the outside here. In each light blue circle, you need 1 person standing, and you can see I'm just kind of checking each of the circles. DPS works really well for this. You'll see these crystals coming down, and if there's 1 person in each circle, it works really well. It doesn't kill anybody. So if you're DPS, you don't really want it to overlap with the sword phase, so make sure to either slow your DPS a little, or if your DPS is fast enough, you'll skip over that phase altogether. Okay, for tanks, I apologize I didn't tank this much, so I didn't get a good shot of it, but for tanks you want to watch for red text above your head, and if you get the red text, and you can see there's some red text right there, move away from the raid, and you can see she's moving all the way to the outside, which is why you kind of want to keep everybody bunched around that marker in the middle, so that you don't have to worry about that. Now this phase is actually at the end, so you want to move these lines away from the boss and just have the DPS not stand in the lines. The lines don't hurt the people who it is on, but it will hurt any teammates that are standing in the lines. So if you get those purple lines across the board, just move them to the outside edge so that you can continue to tank in the middle if possible. Now back to the original raid. Again, here's another one of those sword phases where you're going to follow the person with the marker above their head from sword to sword. That one you can see was doing 1 damage, so we moved on to the next one because we weren't going to be able to kill that one right away. So here we are skipping that one and moving on. And again, I'm just going to fast forward through the rest of this because I think you get the idea of follow the leader and kill the swords. Okay, and that's it pretty much for this raid. It's just really the swords, followed by and there's 3 rounds of swords, and then followed by, the sharing the damage and those purple bombs. Now, again, if you're doing slow enough DPS, you'll end up with that blue circles where each person has to stand in the blue circle, or 1 person per blue circle. And if you are, again, doing slower DPS, you'll get those purple lines that go across the board. But for this particular run that we did with just the guild and not even a full raid, we were still, well, I think we had a couple outside people, but mostly just the guild and not even a full raid, we were still able to clear this without getting either one of those mechanics. It was only when we had like 15 people and we were just messing around with it to learn it that we even encountered those mechanics. So hopefully you find this helpful. I'm suspecting those mechanics are most definitely going to pop up in Peak Adventure. But, for now, the Warhammer normal mode, just to help your guildmates farm that helm and the legs, is a really great way to go about doing that. So it's not too bad of a raid. Mechanics are not too hard. I think that Abyss was a little bit more challenging as far as those mechanics went. So I hope you found this helpful, and this is VGO40 and VGO Girl, and we will see you next time in World of Kings.